Hi, everybody. Welcome to Friends Talk Money. I'm Pam Kruger, co-host of Money Track on public television and founder of WealthRamp.com.
I'm Richard Eisenberg, a personal finance writer and editor, and formerly the editor of the Money and Work channels for the PBS site for people over 50, nextavenue.org.
And I'm Terry Savage, nationally syndicated personal finance columnist and the author of The Savage Truth on Money.
We're three friends who like to talk money and all the issues that come with it.
On this podcast, we're trying to help you understand your personal finances
to get you and your retirement on the right path for true financial peace of mind.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about a problem that actually came out of my own experience, and it's about what to do if you're having problems getting a pension that you are owed. Or maybe even you're not even sure if you're supposed to get a pension, but you didn't get one yet. Well, it turns out there are people and places that can help. And it also turns out I'm not the only one with a problem. According to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, or the PBGC, that's the federal agency in charge of protecting pensions, and I'll come back to them a little bit later, there are more than 80,000 people across the country who have not claimed the pension that they're owed. Now, sometimes they forgot or they didn't know that they were due a pension. But sometimes, like in my case, they run into troubles getting the money that they're due. I'll spare you all the gory details, but basically, I was due a pension from an employer where I used to work for many years, about 19 years I worked there. In the spring of 2022, I contacted them to find out, the record keeper, to find out how much the pension would be in monthly installments if I started taking it. I got the number. I decided I was going to hold off claiming it. But then in September of last year, I was ready. And that's when they told me the monthly pension payout would be about 25% less than what they told me in the spring, which to me didn't make any sense. So I asked them to explain what was going on and why the record keeper gave me these different numbers. And they said, well, they had to go back to the company and find out. Well, anyway, back and forth. I didn't hear back. I started calling the record keeper literally every week for months and months and months. Finally, 6 months after I started asking about the calculation, I finally got an envelope in the mail. It said the payout would be about what I was told initially. It shouldn't be so hard. And I think for people who don't complain like I did, they won't get the kind of satisfaction that I was able to get finally. I think part of it was being persistent. But there are a lot of people who don't know what to do and don't stick up for themselves. So let me just stop. Before I talk about where to go if it happens to you, I just wonder, Pam and Terry, can you believe that story? Have you heard about other people having pensions, having problems getting the pensions that they're due?
Well, it's more common. Well, you look at all those 80,000 people who aren't getting it. It's more common than you might believe. We all figure somebody up there is doing the right calculations. There's a guy named Ted Seidel, who is a known pension gadfly. He's an attorney who files class action suits against pensions. He wrote a book called Who Stole My Pension? And he details a lot of this. He wrote it with Robert Kiyosaki, as a matter of fact. It's been a bestseller. He has recouped, millions upon millions for companies miscalculating the appropriate pension benefits. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but whether it's miscalculations, malfeasance, or ignorance, I think it's something we all have to double check. If you're entitled to a pension, you need to make sure you're not only getting it, but getting the correct amount. So it's a big story.
Yeah. Well, public or private, I think we all know that pension plans are on the list of endangered species. They're in danger of becoming extinct. Think about companies like Sears, years ago that fed into their pension plans, and then, they couldn't even afford to stay in business, but they had, been putting that money into the pension plans. But just to kind of set the stage, most pension plans, and state pension plans anyway, are in pretty good shape. But we know there are a few state pensions that are not. Illinois, New Jersey, for example. And then there are private pensions from private companies, especially those that are in combination with overseen by labor unions, where multiple employers are participating. And especially if the industry itself, like coal mining, or the industry in itself is weakened, then the pension is likely to be distressed. I think a lot of people don't realize that a company and its own finances are kept separate,
Mhm.
actually, from the pension plan. So you can actually have a company that's in good shape, but their pension plan is not. It is woefully underfunded because, like Terry said, it could be mismanagement. It could just be for a number, they made bad investments, whatever it might be. It could be the other way around. You know,
Wait,
where
let me just interject there, Pam. So if you are a company, let's leave multi-employer pension plans aside. We'll talk about them separately. They're insured separately. They're a whole different, that's union plans. And let's leave state government plans aside. Corporate pension plans, I sit on a major corporate board and on the audit committee. The traditional pension plan requires, and that's why companies got rid of them and replace them with 401k plans, which depend on your contributions, your investment decisions, and so forth. The pension plans are a balance sheet item. And if, in fact, your plan is underfunded because you had bad investment returns or your interest rate assumptions change or so forth, then it's a hit to corporate earnings that you have to make a contribution. So that's the basic reason, which, as you said, pension plans at the corporate level are going away. A 401k plan, a company may agree to match, that's one thing, but they don't have this balance sheet obligation that a traditional pension plan, defined benefits plan has. So you have to sort out here, as Richard was talking about, whether it's a corporate pension plan that you're going after, whether it's a state pension plan. Now, interestingly, states can't print money, okay? So many states, I spent my career in Illinois, the most severely underfunded pension plan. And they're trying to catch up now, but and the state constitution won't let them adjust the formula for giving cost of living increases or the benefits formulas. So states are another story. And then labor unions, as you correctly point out, in industries that are troubled also have a different way of being insured and potentially getting your benefits insured. So
and not all companies are insured. Not all companies pay into to that insurance, and they're not all covered.
Well, almost every public company pension plan is covered by something called the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which, Richard, it's your story. I'll let you start from there.
Thank you. Well, yeah, let me tell you a little bit about some of the things I learned when I was looking into this for the podcast and for an article that I'm doing for Market Watch about this. So I talked to a woman named Karen Friedman. She runs the Pension Rights Center, which is a terrific group. It's a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization. They're all about helping people with pension issues. She told me that the problems about not getting the pensions that people are due are very common. And let me now talk a little bit about what do you do if you're having trouble getting a pension. So you can contact the Pension Rights Center, or they have something that's really interesting called the Pension Counseling and Information Project. And these are all over the country. They run them with the government's Administration on Aging program, the federal government. And these pension counseling projects have been around for about 30 years. They serve people in 31 states. So they're not everywhere, but they're in most places. They can also refer you, the Pension Rights Center, to an attorney through what they call the National Pension Lawyers Network. And it may be that an attorney can help you out. But I will say this, many lawyers won't take these types of cases because they don't think it's worth their time. Pam, Terry, anything you want to say about the difficulty and even the cost of hiring an attorney to get help collecting a pension?
Go on to your other ways, Richard, because you're right. It's because the pension miscalculation for you as an individual is one thing. It's why Ted Seidel has won all these great cases, because he investigates and says, wait a minute, this is a huge company. It's not 25 people retired here. This is a huge company. If they've messed up on yours, they're going to be messing up on thousands of employees. That's when it becomes attractive to an attorney. But you have some other resources.
Okay. Yeah. So there are other places to go besides the Pension Rights Center. That's a great place to start. But you can also try to get help with a pension problem by contacting the Department of Labor's little-known agency called the Employee Benefits Security Administration, or EBSA. And I will confess to you, I didn't know very much about this group. It's changed its name and wasn't always called that. But I bet most of our audience is not familiar with EBSA. But they have advisors, people who work at the federal government, who they can't give you legal advice, but what they can do is answer questions. And Karen Friedman at the Pension Rights Center told me that sometimes the EBSA staffers put pressure on employers to get them to make the pension payments that are due. So I would say you might want to contact EBSA. They also have a tool on their website. It's called eFast. That's EFAST. And it lets you find any pensions annual report that's been filed since 2010. This report is known as the Pensions Form 5500. Now, this is really useful to find if you want to find out, who's got the pension, how much is in it, who manages it, all that sort of thing. It's the kind of thing most people don't have and don't even know about, but it can be helpful. If you're due pension money and your former employer says you're not, you can file a claim. You follow a process in the pension summary plan description document, and you'll want to do that. And if the company still won't pay, then you might want to try to find either a lawyer or contact EBSA because they may be able to take it up a little bit for you. There's also another guy at the Pension Rights Center I talked to. Yeah.
And we're going to put I could hear people going, wait, what was that name? What was that? We'll
Yeah.
put this all in the show notes
Yeah.
at our website, friendstalkmoney.org, so you can have all links to all this.
Absolutely. Now, something else that was interesting I didn't know. I talked to a guy named Norman Stein at the Pension Rights Center, and he said that sometimes the Social Security Administration sends people notices when they find out that the people have not started taking their pension benefits from former employers, just to let them know. So basically you get a letter from Social Security saying, hey, did you know that you are due a pension? And some people get that letter and that's the first time that they even knew that there was a pension. So I applaud Social Security for telling people about this. Sometimes people are going to get that kind of a letter and throw it away, think it doesn't mean anything. If you happen to get one of those letters and you don't know about a pension, you really want to follow up on that.
Yeah, I think also, Richard, and I don't know if you did this in your own particular case or not, but one pension consultant that I was reading was saying that one of the best things is, you've got to make sure that, you really have your information up to date.
Right.
When it comes down to whether it's a private company, public company, it's your pension, just making sure that everything is completely current, so that, your employer, your former employer, can reach you. Because sometimes the mistakes that happen simply because of that.
That's right. People move and the
Yeah.
pension people don't know where to find them. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I would say, to your point, Pam, if you are going to contact an advisor or even an attorney or the government or the Pension Rights Center, you want to have in front of you, this is the date I started working at that employer. This is the date I left the employer, how many years I was there, anything else they should know about your experience there, and any information you've ever gotten about your pension. Let them know everything you can, because the more information they have, the better they're going to be able to do for you.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, I know you didn't want to get too much into the details, but I am curious, just the nutshell of it, how it kind of came about at the end.
Well, I think it was just my being so pushy and bothering them every week. And, basically the people at the record keeper didn't understand what was going on. They said the only people who would know that is the company that had the pension. The frustration I was running into, and I think the record keeper was running into, is neither of us could get an answer from the company that was paying the pension. And it may be bureaucracy, it may be they just didn't want to deal with it. I don't know what it was, and I kept saying to the record keeper, can't you just pick up the phone and speak to somebody at that company and get an answer? And they said, no, that's not the way it works. We have special rules we have to follow, and it's all by email. And so sometimes you can get caught in the middle of things. I do want to mention a couple places people can go if they want to track down a pension. So this is, you think you might be due a pension, but you're not sure. You want to find out about that. So there's that website for the government's Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the PBGC we've mentioned. And they have on their website a way to look for an unclaimed pension benefit. So you go to their website, you'll find it there, and we'll put it in the show notes. There's also something called the National Registry of Unclaimed Retirement Benefits. It's another website where you can go there and track down your pension that way. And there's something called the National Association of Unclaimed property administrators. Now, that's usually people think of it as the place to go when, you know, they've got a dormant bank account and it's sort of sitting somewhere and they didn't know about it, or their father or their aunt had it and there's money due to them. Well, that they track that kind of thing, but they also track pensions. So I would say try all of these places, because you never know, and one or more of them may be able to help you out. And if you do want to find out about a pension plan that was terminated, then you want to go to the PBG site or use EBSA's abandoned plan search tool, because they can help you find out about a plan that used to exist and doesn't exist, because that's happened in some cases. And there are a lot of pensions that still exist, but they froze their benefits. So people were getting a pension and it was going up to a certain amount, and then at a certain point it just stopped growing, and that's what the benefit's going to be later on. But
Okay,
I
I
would
want to bring up
recommend that you
another
want to see-
point about pensions in general and planning and your own financial planning into retirement, you know, with a pension. If pensions are going by way of the dinosaur, you know, which we know they are, if pensions are, you know, some number of them, a meaningful number, are underfunded. And I get this question to our advisors, you know, that question does come in a lot, you know, to the advisors. I would want to suggest, and you tell me what you think of this, both of you, but when it comes time to getting ready to retire, and you know, you've got that lump sum, take the money and run, or annuitize question. I feel like, you know, in the cases of just being concerned about this and sleeping at night, I'm a take the money and run girl, even if the annuitization sounds good. I worry about the future.
I'm the opposite. I feel like I'm nervous about if I were to get a big lump sum of money, would I do it, invest it properly?
I'll
and
help you with that.
Well, I
Wait,
might help you, but I'd rather know that I'm getting a certain amount every month and not have to think about it and see it show up in my bank account. But everybody's different.
all right, now I want to add one more point, because you brought up the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. And I go way back with this organization on a couple of levels. First of all, when the United Airlines went bankrupt, and I think it was back in the late 80s, and I was covering this story as a financial reporter column, you know, I remember the pilots were especially scared. And that was when I learned that PBGC, oh, by the way, where you want to go, Pension Benefit Guaranty Corp, pbgc.gov. There is a limit to the dollar amount of your annual pension that is covered. And the pilots who were very high paid at that time, we're going back almost 35 years, were very worried, because their promised payments, which at that time would have been, at that time was a lot of money, it was like $65,000 a year, were above that guarantee level. Then my good friend Lynn Martin was Secretary of Labor. I'm kind of trying to remember how many years ago. That was probably back in the 80s too. Maybe it was under Reagan even. Yeah, we're old. I'm old. And I collect a pension, by the way, from AFTRA.
Your experience.
So yeah, I know this. And she told me that we're talking 30 some years ago, that the PBGC itself then was severely underfunded. So it has to go to Congress. So those 2 points I want to make. And in preparation for this, every year, the PBGC at pbgc.gov sets a maximum amount it'll pay. And it pays also based on your age. So for this year, okay, if you are 75 already, you know, we are way past retirement, the most it will pay out for this year from per month is $20,500. And if you elect a joint annuity, survivor annuity with your spouse, it drops down to $18,000. But then I will scroll down. If you're 70, now here's where it counts. The insured amount is $4,387 a month, or $39.48 if you've had a lifetime with your spouse.
What?
And if you're 50, if you're 50, your maximum guaranteed amount this year, if your company went out of business and it didn't have enough money to pay its pensions, the maximum amount the PBGC will pay is $2,364. 50, you're looking for a pension in a few years. And in a joint life, it's $2,126. So
Richard, do you still want to annuitize?
Mhm.
No. Well, the point I'm making is not every pension gives you the chance of taking a lump sum. And the lump sum is, believe me, calculated based on the present value of the money. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, every year you get a statement from your pension of the funding level. The state of Illinois pension funding level is somewhat under 30%. The Chicago police and fire pensions are similarly underfunded. I've written about that and gotten, oh my God, but well, surely they'll get the money from somewhere. Where? They require the firemen to live in the city or the police to live in the city. So they raise their property taxes to give them a pension. And this is a huge looming issue with public and private pensions. So yeah, pension's a big word. It's very esoteric. Most of you won't have one.
No.
If you're lucky enough to have one, you get that monthly check. It's not adjusted for inflation. So the bottom line is there's some insurance, but you want to make sure you're saving more than just your pension.
Yeah,
Pension
always,
is not
always.
enough.
I think I read where EBSA, that's EBSA, that keeps tabs on the funding status and pensions that it classifies as being in critical condition on life support, either, or declining or endangered. And in 2020, there were like 121 pensions that were in critical condition. And a critical plan means less than 65% funded. Now, Terry, you pointed out Illinois, which is not part of that particular group, but at 30%. So, it's just anybody who has a pension, just to be on top of everything and keeping everything current, knowing where it is. No, it's your money. If you need to kind of understand what's happening in the world of pensions.
One other thing I would mention is that if your company was sold and you had a pension plan with it and it was merged into another plan, the benefits that you accrued can't be reduced. So you don't need to worry that you're going to not get the pension because that company was merged into another one. It is a complicated subject, but it's also an important one. And most of what I want people to know is there are places to go to get help, but it also helps if you are your best advocate. And so if you're not getting it or you've got questions, take action, do whatever you can to be sure you're due what you are supposed to get and you get it when you want to get it. So we hope that if you're entitled to a pension, you do get what you are deserving to get and you get it at the right time. But if you do run into problems, we hope that you're going to learn from some of the things we said today and take action to get what you do deserve. Thanks so much.
I'm glad for you that you were able to get your situation resolved, and sharing that with us is worth knowing, really is.
Thank you.
Friends Talk Money is funded in part by a grant from the Investor Protection Trust. The IPT is a nonprofit organization devoted to investor education. Since 1993, the IPT has worked with the states to provide the independent, objective investor education needed by all Americans to make informed investment decisions. Visit investorprotection.org. We also receive support from the North American Securities Administrators Association, known as NASA. It's the oldest international investor protection organization. NASA's members include state and provincial securities regulators from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico who serve on the front lines of investor protection. Recognizing that education and awareness are powerful tools in the fight against investment fraud, NASA is pleased to sponsor Friends Talk Money. Here are 3 important tips to help you protect your money from fraud. With investing, there are always risks, so be cautious of anybody telling you that a certain investment is guaranteed. You should also proceed with caution if somebody is promising very large investment returns. This is a common red flag for investment fraud. Last and most importantly, be sure you're working with a licensed or registered financial professional. You can check your advisor and make sure they're licensed by visiting brokercheck.finra.org. NASA is your partner in keeping you safe and helping you avoid investment frauds. Visit nasa.org and click on the Investor Education tab to learn more.